Hello, welcome back to Non-synchronous online course. In one of previous modules, I said if there are not any issues of biosecurity at the national level in all United Nations member states, there will be no biosecurity issues at the global level. However, to make it a reality is a great challenge because some states may not follow the international norms. Instead of following the international norms, some states may find the loopholes in international treaties and conventions. This module will familiarize you with some essential elements and focus on tactics used by the revisionist proliferator states. Okay, let's get it started. Okay, what am I going to teach you through this module? In this module, you will learn aims of revisionist proliferator states. You will learn how proliferators and their agents can misuse open source information. You will learn some examples of direct actions, enterprise operations, and enterprise operations that may be illegal as a part of surreptitious activities of revisionist proliferator states. You will also learn semi-disclosure and full disclosure of intent to violate export controls or sanctions. Due diligence techniques and know your customer practices are essential. It's all about digging deep into the issues that concern you from a biosecurity perspective. As a biological researcher or a stakeholder of the biological supply chains, maybe you are engaged with any company either within your own country or outside of your own country. Always follow due diligence to ensure that you are safe and secure and follow all the rules in compliance. In the title of the module and on some other slides, including this slide, I'm using the term the revisionist proliferator states. What does the term revisionist proliferator states means? Revisionist states are those states who will challenge the methods that are in place to secure against the prohibited proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Therefore, if somebody suspicious person or company is approaching you, you must be capable of digging deep regardless of the company or individual. The aim of revisionist proliferator states and programs is to evade trade restrictions and sanctions. Now the question is, what do proliferator states want to achieve by evading trade restrictions and sanctions? Their primary goals are to enhance offensive military capabilities, to enhance defensive military capabilities, and to gain illicit economic advantage. It is not in compliance with many international treaties and conventions. Hence, the goal of the non-proliferation groups is to not allow that to happen for biosecurity reasons. The actions of revisionist states will be in violation of international conventions such as Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention and our other conventions. The illicit economic advantage would come from one country intending to supply another country's proliferation efforts. Therefore, we need to be on the lookout for while we are going through any transaction related to biological materials, equipment, and knowledge. As biological researchers and stakeholders of the biological supply chains, continually we should ensure that our due diligence is in place. If not, we should move quickly to get it into place. The last point is highlighting one other goal of revisionist states agenda, which is intended for avoiding and seeking non-compliance with trade restrictions. Hence, they continue to conduct international relations and diplomatic activity that their international counterparts criticize. I have a question for you. You can think about it. My question is open source information good or bad? You can answer this question later. Okay, let's move on. Revisionist proliferator states and their agents programs are designed to evade trade restrictions and sanctions and achieve their goals. They will seek open source information. The information from research papers that are published by experts could be misused by the proliferators. However, academics, researchers, or scientists may not be aware of it. Open source information and available materials can be used to create proprietary and classified data to identify products, goods, or services they want and individuals they assess as helpful in getting what they want. Trade publications, non-confidential business documents such as RFIs or RFPs or RFQs that contain usable technical information, hiring profiles of individual and social media platform serve as sources of desired information and or materials. Biological researchers and stakeholders, those of you who are not familiar with RFQs or RFIs or RFPs, please note that RFQ stands for request for quotation, RFI stands for request for information, and RFP stands for request for proposal. So as a biological researcher and stakeholder of the biological supply chains, make sure that what you post on your social media is appropriate. The information can be exploited, so better review and identify your social media vulnerabilities. If your proprietary information is available through an open source or open source information that universities, colleges, biotech companies, and countries put out there on the internet to highlight their capabilities or technologies, can be a source of information for proliferators. The capability of expert individuals could be targeted independently. The individual with access to proprietary biological information or materials could become a target, as they could bring that material or information if coerced or requested or tricked in some way for desired materials. Therefore, before any sensitive biosecurity information such as trade publications, non-confidential business documents, co-ventures information, hiring profiles, and similar open source information goes online, it should be carefully filtered by biological researchers and the management of the organizations. As a biological researcher and a stakeholder of the biological supply chain, you should take note that the open source information about what type of people, organizations, or companies attempting to hire the proliferator states can mimic those to some degree, or try to hire the same people that your company is attempting to hire. So, can we keep that type of sensitive information off of LinkedIn? Can we keep that off of the internet? Can we keep that off of these very public sites? Hiring managers from the HR department should be aware of it. From a biosecurity perspective, biological researchers and their organizations should ensure that they know what they need to protect while putting sensitive or proprietary information out there on the internet. The social media accounts of organizations and individuals, those are serving for that company or who work for that organization, are an important source of information. Organizations should have a system or mechanism to monitor what's there out through internet about their capabilities and technologies, which could be potentially misused. If needed, think of having a task force or a working group within your organization to assess the information that you are putting out there. Bear in mind that the HR manager, marketing department, and other stakeholders from your organization should be on the same page. Under surreptitious activity, direct action means someone may attempt to gain access to information from you directly. We can term it human exploitation. There is no disclosure in this case of an intent to violate export controls or sanctions. We can call it humans or human intelligence, or an individual specifically trying to access that information. Maybe someone you invited to visit your organization or company. It is common because you want to collaborate with other organizations and companies. Visitors may try to gain access to information that is secure and proprietary. They may ask for it, or making some slightly unreasonable requests to gain access to that information. To protect your sensitive information, you can have a meeting before your visitors or customers come into view what you are doing. Decide what you can and cannot share with those visiting individuals, because your sensitive information can be exploited. Let's ensure we don't make sensitive biosecurity information accessible or available to every visitors or all visitors. Exploitation or interception of unsecured communications that include telephone calls, video conferences, Zoom meetings, or other platforms. Those are mostly internet-based contacts or platforms. Think about how strong is your cybersecurity. Think about, is there any proprietary information going out over these internet-based lines of communication? If yes, Is it being intercepted? Let your information technology vendor or staff address and review it for your internet. Let your cybersecurity personnel review and set up standards by which you can protect yourself when you are engaged in any kind of communication. Other examples of surreptitious activity are creation of front companies, cyber-enabled direct action, including social engineering. Organizations should make sure that there are no internal threats. We call it insider threats. Bear in mind that self-motivated insiders can breach the biosecurity norms or personal gratification. It is likely that the targeted insiders may be encouraged to engage in non-compliance. Surreptitious activity 2 highlights the examples of tactics used by revisionist proliferator states through fraudulent enterprise operations. Some examples include transshipment obfuscation, where third country hubs are used to evade the restrictions or sanctions. It could be biosecurity sensitive equipment or biological materials, which could be helpful in the development of biological weapons. Another example is the systematic exploitation of legitimate actors. Revisionist proliferator states can exploit legitimate actors from financing institutions, shipping and good supplier companies to achieve their goals. Revisionist proliferator states and their agents are also known for using the tactics of establishing sale or front companies to evade the restrictions of export control and sanctions. A front company means a sham or sell company that is fully functioning with the characteristics of a legitimate business, but allows illegal purchases or violations of export control and sanctions. Therefore, to protect biological materials, equipment, and our biosecurity sensitive information, we need to ensure that the company we are dealing with is credible and doesn't have false credentials. Under surreptitious activity 3, we will see a few examples of enterprise operations that may be illegal. For instance, mergers and acquisitions. Remember that mergers and acquisitions are one of the tactics besides creating a false corporations or a false front company. Multiple mergers and acquisitions of companies may be a part of a strategy to hide a history of non-compliance by the company that you are engaging with. So be careful. Another example is that revisionist states could also use the tactics of academic exchanges or collaboration based on fraudulent intent. Maybe offering fellowships to the experts to gain access to scientific information or to achieve their hidden agenda. One more example is that experts recruitment can be done by the agents of the revisionist proliferator states under false pretenses under the umbrella of talent management. Semi-disclosure of intent to violate export control or sanctions. Under the direct approach, there can be semi-disclosure and full disclosure. First, we'll talk about semi-disclosure. Tactics of semi-disclosure of intent are used to violate export controls or sanctions. If you see a semi-disclosure means something that is not quite right on the lines of the laws and the rules, but close enough, and they still want to get the job done because of financial incentives. Your company wants business and they want your product, and your company needs to sell your product to get the business. So if you are in logistics operations, you should be aware of the tactics of the agents of revisionist proliferator states. Working around bureaucracy and taking advantage of loopholes is a red flag for the company you are working with. If you move forward with the business without doing due diligence, the situation can become complex. More and more liberties may be taken as the transaction progresses, and finally, you could become a party to the fraudulent activity. When the biological researcher or the targeted stakeholder realizes what is going on, their involvement is portrayed as fully criminally liable. The unaware participant is more easily coerced or likely to continue as complicit and already subject to sanction. Okay, the next is full disclosure of intent to violate export controls or sanctions. Bear in mind that the full disclosure of intent to violate export controls or sanctions come with an attempt to motivate by financial means. They will present opportunities as patriotic in support of one's country. They will present an opportunity to help a friendly country in need. Keep in mind, the violator portrays himself as representing a country for which the target has sympathy, but in fact represents an undisclosed third country. Therefore, especially biological researchers and stakeholders of the biological supply chains should be aware of these types of tactics of the agents of the revisionist proliferator states. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so to summarize this module, I want to highlight a few points. As a biological researcher and stakeholder of the biological supply chains, you need to protect yourself, your organization, your country from being exploited. So to do so, what is important? Point number one, robust and diligent biosecurity compliance practices are essential. Point number two, know your customer. Procedures and practices are essential. And point number three, effective due diligence is essential in export control and sanction knowledgeable environment to protect biological materials, equipment, and knowledge. Okay, before I stop, I want to remind you that while talking about open source information, I asked one question. The question was, is the open source information good or bad for biosecurity? Answering this question is purely optional, but I encourage you to share your answer and thoughts through comment section. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.